The room fell silent when the final vote was cast. Every representative of the Galactic Council had raised their hand, except the seat marked for Earth. That seat had been empty for months. No message, no ambassador, just silence. And now, with a cold flick of ceremonial lights, Earth was officially exiled from the Galactic Union. Chancellor of the Zethari race stood, his long robe dragging across the marble floor. His voice echoed through the chambers as he declared the result. Humanity is no longer welcome. They refused regulation. They rejected integration. They are now, by vote of 71-0, exiled from the known alliances of the galaxy. The room gave a low hum of approval, but Earth had already known this would happen. They didn't wait to hear the verdict. Months before the vote, long before, the Council grew bold enough to formalize the banishment. Something had shifted on Earth. The human colonies went dark. Trade ceased. Their borders, once open to shared science and alien tourism, slammed shut. Humans stopped answering calls, not out of weakness, but with purpose. Captain Reyna Lorne stood at the bridge of the Aegis Rift, Earth's most advanced warship. It floated in deep orbit, hidden behind the rings of a gas giant in Sector 17. The crew had been silent, alert, for hours. News from the Council had just reached them. Earth was no longer recognized. Reyna's jaw tightened, but there was no surprise in her eyes. We were never going to wait around to be thrown out, she said to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Darian Voss. They fear us, so they isolate us. But they forget we learned. From all of them, every empire, every mistake. And we built something stronger. Darian gave a slow nod. Orders, Captain? Activate Protocol Obsidian. Full communication lockdown. And bring Project Reclaimer online. It's time. Far below the orbiting ship, Earth had already changed. Cities once glowing with alien architecture had been dismantled. Trade hubs converted into defense nodes. The Earth defense grid had gone. Lived 2 weeks before the vote. Humanity had stopped playing nice the moment they sensed the tide turning. They had adapted fast, years ago. Humans had been invited into the Galactic Council as a curiosity, clever, chaotic, but full of potential. Now they were feared. Not because of their weapons, but because of their unpredictability. They refused to follow a single culture, a single way. They evolved through conflict, not peace. The galaxy preferred order. Humanity was born in rebellion, and when the Council began whispering about discipline and containment, Earth had started preparing, quietly, efficiently. No more diplomacy, no more dependency. They took what they learned and closed the door, back on the Aegis Rift. A quiet alarm pulsed. Lieutenant Voss checked the incoming scan. Multiple probes approaching our perimeter. Non-hostile, but marked with Council beacon signatures. They're watching us, Reyna said. Trying to see if we'll flinch now that we're exiled. She stood tall in her armor, polished black with the new sigil of Earth's united force. No longer flying under the flag of the Union, but something new. Fierce. Focused. Let them watch, she said. But they'll never see what's coming next. Thousands of kilometers away, on the dark side of Mars, hidden beneath the crust, something stirred. Massive hangar doors opened to reveal a fleet never recorded in any treaty. Ships with designs not meant for peace. Experimental engines, stealth tech, rail-based planetary weapons. Humanity had not just prepared for exile, they had planned for it, in the heart of Earth. Leaders from every nation stood in one room. No arguing, no debate. The United Earth Assembly had formed after the first whispers of banishment. There were no longer separate governments, only one voice, one direction. Survival no longer required approval. We will not beg to stay, said President Marek Tan. We will not plead to belong. They wanted to fear us. Now they will learn why that was a mistake. The council believed they had removed a threat. But all they had done was give it freedom, no rules, no oversight. Humanity was no longer bound by promises it never made. It would now act without hesitation. On the edge of the galactic border, a small council scout vessel detected the first anomaly, a transmission of unknown frequency. Moments later, the ship lost all power. It drifted silently, caught in the gravity of a red dwarf star. No weapons were fired. No trace left behind. Just silence, and then the cold. Something had begun, quietly, but purposefully. The galaxy had cast Earth out, believing it would go quietly, but humans didn't know how to stay silent. Not for long. They had been watching, calculating, preparing. And now that they were unbound, they would act without restraint. The vote was over. Humanity hadn't waited to be told twice. The council believed the exile would bring peace. Without humanity, the galaxy would return to harmony. That was their plan. But not all council members agreed in silence. A few species had quietly warned that pushing Earth away might provoke something worse than war. Something that couldn't be controlled or predicted. Among them was High Scholar Ven of the Grelani, a race known for their foresight and caution. She had voted against Earth's exile, but her voice was drowned by fear. And now, as she stared at the data coming through the observatory's deep scanner, her concern turned to dread. An entire sector of council-monitored space had gone dark. No signals, no traffic, no warning. This is no accident, she whispered to herself as her 4 fingers tapped the console. This is retaliation. Cold, calculated retaliation. In Earth's orbit, the Aegis Rift was no longer alone. Several other human vessels had begun moving into hidden positions. Some disappeared behind planetary shadows. Others entered asteroid belts. Their formation was unlike anything the Council had seen before. It was not defensive. It was preparation. Captain Reyna stood before her crew with silent pride. She had trained for years for this moment, not to fire first, but to ensure humanity would never kneel again. Her voice cut through the command bridge like steel. They pushed us out. Now we show them what that decision truly means. Humanity had mastered warfare from experience. Their wars had not been simulations. They had been survival. And now they didn't fight for planets or resources. They fought to prove they belonged nowhere, but where they chose to stand. At the Luna Command Base beneath the moon's surface, a secret council of Earth's top strategists gathered around a glowing map of known galactic routes. They were not planning attacks, they were disabling vulnerabilities. Communication satellites, sensor networks, and key transit gates all had been mapped. Earth didn't need permission to control the stars. General Ayla Haas, a brilliant mind, forged in the fires of Earth's last civil war, pointed to a blinking cluster of red dots. These are the relay stations nearest our border. Disable them quietly. Let them feel blind before they realize who turned out the lights. The mission was approved. No loud invasions, no broadcasts. Just silent operations that left questions and fear behind. It was psychological war at its finest. In the outer sectors, a Varnari patrol ship drifted into human-marked space, unaware that it had crossed an invisible line. For 3 minutes, it sent friendly signals. Then its instruments failed. Lights dimmed. Crew screamed into silent channels. The ship was never seen again. Only a faint echo remained, caught by a nearby trade satellite. Back on Earth, civilians were calm. Schools continued. Cities functioned. The media said nothing about war or exile. Instead, they spoke of unity. Every human knew what had happened, but none panicked. The silence was not fear. It was focus. For once, all of humanity looked in the same direction. A young girl in New Tokyo asked her father, "Will we be okay?" He looked at the stars, then back at her, and said with a calm voice, "We already are. They just don't know it yet." On The capital world of the Council, alarm bells began ringing. Ships reported missing, trading routes quiet. Merchants afraid to pass near Earth systems. The Council scrambled for answers, but their scans returned nothing. Earth had disappeared from their network, not physically, but tactically. The Council chamber filled with loud voices and heated debates. Chancellor HFY slammed his clawed fist against the control table. They were supposed to fade, not strike. What are these humans doing? No one had an answer. Because no one had ever seen humanity this united, this quiet, or this dangerous. The exile had not weakened them. It had freed them. In the dark reaches of space, human ships performed synchronized jumps into forbidden zones. Not to conquer, but to claim information, old relics, lost weapons, data left behind by civilizations long gone. Earth was gathering what the Council had forgotten or ignored. They weren't building an army. They were building advantage, inside. The Aegis Rift. Reyna watched a 3D projection of dozens of stealth missions being carried out. Every door they tried to close, she said quietly. We've turned into a path forward. Her crew didn't cheer. They understood what was coming. The war wasn't loud. It was quiet, surgical. It wasn't to win control. It was to show. That control never belonged to the Council in the first place. The galaxy thought they had voted Earth out. But Earth had already walked away, not in shame, but in silence. And now, with every broken satellite and vanished patrol, they sent one message back into the void: we never needed your permission. The Galactic Council was not used to confusion. For centuries, it had operated with order, diplomacy, and structure. But now no protocol could explain what was happening. Ships vanished. Relays failed. Their probes returned no data. It was like Earth had become a shadow, and with it, all of humanity's plans. On the Council's central world, security experts reviewed footage of the last known human ship sighting. The images showed the vessel moving silently, surrounded by energy patterns the Council scientists didn't understand. No known tech could mask a ship like that. No known species had ever moved that precisely through sensor fields. What are they doing? Asked Councillor Reith, a Toleran strategist. His thin tendrils quivered with nervous energy. We exiled them. Why didn't they collapse like others did? A Sathari scientist shook her head. Because they prepared. They studied us while smiling. And now that we turned our backs, they're executing steps we never saw coming. In a secure base on Titan, Earth's Black Ops Command met without lights or records. Their orders were simple. Retrieve Earth's lost science, dismantle Council surveillance systems, and begin black-seeding efforts across unclaimed systems. They weren't invading planets. They were laying foundations. Quiet ones. Hidden ones. Commander Eli Ward looked over his team. They cast us out, but we were never inside. We just acted like we were. Now we act like ourselves. Thousands of small human ships, autonomous, silent, cloaked, slipped into asteroid fields and gas clouds across the rim. They built hidden outposts. They tested new weapons. They didn't broadcast their success. They let the silence speak. Some Council races still hoped for peace. The Grelani sent a message to Earth, requesting a dialogue. But Earth did not respond. Not because they were hostile, but because they were finished talking. Words had ended when the vote passed. From now on, action would define the balance of power inside a Council war room. Admiral Kor of the Drakari clutched a report with trembling claws. The humans haven't attacked. But trade between 11 sectors has collapsed. One of our outer colonies received food shipments from somewhere. It wasn't us. They didn't say who helped. Just that the crate said, no permission needed. The words spread like fire. Not because they were violent, but because they were true. Earth was not hiding. Earth was not begging. Earth was moving, and everyone else was simply too slow to stop them. Aboard the Aegis Rift, Captain Reyna stood before a hologram of Council territory. Red zones blinked softly, regions where Earth's presence had been detected. She reached out and dragged a line through the galactic map. "We were always told not to cross this border," she said. "Now we rewrite the map." "Lieutenant." Voss leaned forward. "No resistance so far. No one knows who to blame yet. They suspect us, but they can't prove anything." "That's the point," she replied. "They called us dangerous. Let's make that true, but not with missiles, with control." At the edge of the Freyline system, a Council mining station went silent. No distress call. No alarms, just quiet. When scouts arrived, they found no damage, just empty halls and screens displaying a human message. "This is your reminder, we are watching." The Council was trapped. They had no reason to declare war. Earth hadn't fired a shot. But still, fear spread. Trade slowed, patrols thickened. Even internal trust among species began to crack. They had cast Earth out thinking it would protect their order. Instead, it shattered it. In a hidden observatory built inside a dead comet, human engineers activated a telescope unlike any the Council had seen. It could track energy shifts of quantum drives across thousands of light years. With it, Earth watched everything. President Marek Tan addressed Earth's top commanders in a silent meeting. "We don't want domination," he said calmly. "We want sovereignty. We're not here to rule. We're here to remind them we never needed their system to thrive." The commanders nodded. They knew the mission was not conquest. It was independence, total, untouchable, unquestioned. Among the Council, panic began to grow. Planets once confident in their safety now questioned their isolation. Could Earth be among them already? Could the humans be inside their systems, their data, their vaults? The fear didn't come from what Earth had done, it came from what they might already be doing. Even in the peaceful halls of neutral worlds, artists began painting the new phrase spreading like myth. No permission needed. It wasn't propaganda, it was warning. It was legend, it was fact. Humanity had accepted exile. But they didn't accept submission. The galaxy's vote hadn't ended a chapter. It had only lit the fuse. Earth didn't wait to be told twice. Asterisk in the outer ring of the Pallarian cluster, Council forces responded to a distress signal from an independent relay station. When they arrived, they found the entire structure intact, but the station's database was wiped clean. No sign of a struggle. No damage to the hardware. Just one file left behind. A single video looped on every screen. It showed a human child, standing in a field of stars, whispering one sentence again and again. "We're not gone. We're growing." The crew disconnected every terminal in panic. The signal wasn't a threat, yet everyone who saw it felt something crawl under their skin. It was the quiet confidence, the sense of control. The message didn't say what was coming. It said it was already here. In a secret conference hall beneath the Council's capital, the highest leaders gathered in person, a rare event reserved only for galactic emergencies. Chancellor HFY's voice was sharp as he paced across the floor. "These humans are not making war, they are making fear. They are turning silence into a weapon." The room was divided. Some wanted retaliation. Some demanded negotiation. Others simply wished they hadn't voted Earth out. But there was no unity. The galaxy was full of order, but without trust. And Earth knew that, deep in the black void. A hidden moon turned slowly in a dead system. It held no cities, no lights. Just one structure, a massive hangar carved into stone. Inside it, thousands of drones activated with a silent pulse. They weren't weapons. They were builders. Carving. New machines. Expanding storage. Preparing for something big. Human command had long ago stopped asking for permission to build. If a planet was unclaimed and dead, it became a seed site. And no one could prove they were there. Because no one could find them, Captain Reyna reviewed. The latest reports aboard the Aegis Rift. Her eyes moved from screen to screen, not with urgency but with calm. Our reach now spans 7 sectors. We haven't fired a single shot, but they're already starting to fall apart. Her second-in-command nodded. Council fleets are doubling patrols. They've recalled half their outer colonies. There, guarding shadows, Reyna gave a small smile. Let them. We own the shadows now. Aboard the Kellen Dusk, a merchant ship from the Janari Republic, the crew picked up an unknown crate drifting in space. It was metallic, unmarked, and inactive. They brought it aboard for salvage. Hours later, their entire navigation system upgraded itself. Their drive became faster, their weapons more efficient. No virus, no hack. Just a message printed on the new control panel. Keep it. Earth gives without asking. It was the 5th time this happened in a month. Human tech left behind like gifts. Some called it manipulation. Others called it a miracle. Either way, the message spread. Earth was helping without contact, sharing without approval, gaining loyalty without ever asking for it. Council meetings turned into shouting matches. We must send a fleet, one ambassador yelled. This is infection, not assistance. But no planet wanted to be the one to attack first, because none of them had been attacked. And none of them were sure their fleets would even find Earth's ships, let alone survive the encounter. Humanity had become a myth in just 6 months. Not because of lies, but because of silence. Their moves were not loud, but their results were undeniable. New colonies across neutral zones reported improved. Infrastructure, communication relays restored. Trade routes stabilized. All by invisible hands. One trader said he saw a human, once just a flash of a face through a helmet, before the figure vanished behind a cloaked shuttle. He tried to thank them, but the reply was just one word. Unnecessary. Back on Earth. Life was calm. Skies were clear. Cities rebuilt in harmony. The Exile had not weakened Earth's core. It had removed its distractions. Without Council restrictions, innovation exploded. Scientists returned to forbidden studies. Engineers built what the Council feared. Artists painted truth again. President Marek Tan stood on the platform of Earth's restored World Forum. He looked over the crowd, not just of humans, but of alien diplomats who had come seeking something the Council no longer offered. Stability. You see chaos. He spoke clearly, but this is how peace begins. Not by forcing rules, but by breaking chains that serve no one. They called us dangerous. And now, without a vote, we build a future. Far from Earth, the first fully cloaked human station went live inside a neutron cloud. It could scan half the galaxy without being seen, and soon, it would do more. It would speak, not through war, not through invasion, but through a message that would reach every world, every moon, every corner of the stars. Humanity never asked to lead. But now they would show what happens when you try to silence those who refuse to kneel. They had been banished. And that had been the last decision. The Council made without fear. On the Council's outer defense grid, Commander Lith of the Valari stood frozen in front of a silent monitor. 3 of their long-range relay stations had gone dark within the last 2 hours. No distress calls, no explosions. Just total silence. Their ships went to investigate and vanished too, each time. The only thing left behind was a repeating phrase in the system logs. It wasn't a virus. It wasn't even hostile. It simply said, "We are not the threat. You are the mistake." The Council scrambled. Emergency meetings were called, but none of the representatives could agree on action. Some shouted for retaliation. Others warned of unintended consequences. A few simply left, quietly shifting their allegiance. They didn't say it out loud, but many had started to believe Earth might be right. Earth had not conquered a single system. Yet they were everywhere. Unseen ships drifted through deep space. Supplies appeared where none were ordered. Entire stations stabilized without anyone knowing who repaired them. Fear didn't come from destruction. It came from the invisible hand of control. Captain Reyna sat alone in her private quarters aboard the Aegis Rift. In front of her was a map showing every council, trade corridor, and Earth's growing influence. She leaned back in her chair, not out of pride but calculation. This wasn't about revenge. It was about proving a point. Humanity was not wild. It was patient. The Exile had only removed the leash. And now, Reyna and thousands like her worked not as conquerors, but as architects of a different kind of power. Meanwhile, the colony, one of the oldest peaceful species, reached out again to Earth through encrypted channels. This time, they didn't ask for peace. They asked for permission to join Earth's growing Shadow Alliance. Permission was denied, but only because Earth didn't believe in needing permission at all. "You don't need to join us," the reply said. "You just need to stand up. On your own." That is the lesson we learned too late. Across neutral sectors, whispers of the Earth, a chord grew. It wasn't an alliance. It wasn't a treaty. It was a quiet understanding. If Earth helped you, you didn't ask why. If you saw a black ship and it didn't fire, you let it pass. If your world prospered unexpectedly, you said nothing. The more silence you gave, the more peace you received. In the deepest regions of unmarked space, human engineers completed work on a structure once banned by the Council, the Echo Beacon. A massive device capable of broadcasting messages across the galaxy through subspace ripples. But it wouldn't send threats. It would send truth. President Marek stood before the activation switch. His advisors asked if he was sure. He answered. Simply, "They silenced us. Let's give the stars a voice again." With a single motion, the signal went live. Every council frequency blinked. Every station, every ship, every listening post suddenly heard the same calm message, spoken in hundreds of languages at once. "We did not leave. We were forced out. And now, without chains, we offer peace, not ruled by fear, but by choice. Build your own strength. Build your own future. We do not ask for seats. We do not ask for thanks. We simply remind you we never needed your permission." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Some delegates walked out. Others called it propaganda. But among the chaos, one species after another disconnected from the council's grid. Quietly, peacefully. They didn't announce departure. They just stopped listening. On a frozen moon, a child played with a drone that had been left behind by a passing black ship. It taught her math, engineering, and languages. Her parents didn't understand how it worked. They didn't try to sell it. They just let it stay. The human presence wasn't felt by soldiers. It was felt by changes. Machines that repaired cities. Signals that cleared space traffic. Systems that stabilized power grids without asking who owned them. Earth had learned that true influence wasn't seen. It was lived. In the middle of an asteroid belt, a council fleet finally caught sight of a stealth-class Earth vessel. They gave pursuit. Chased it for hours through dense rocks and radiation storms. When they finally cornered it, it vanished. No explosion, no jump signature. Only a single message remained. "Thank you for wasting your time on Earth News." Of the Council's rising panic was met with calm smiles. Not because humans hated them, but because it proved something important. Humanity had shown that exile wasn't a punishment. It was freedom in disguise. The systems the Council once ruled with strict control now turned to Earth for quiet help. And Earth gave it without flags, without parades, without chains. They weren't building an empire. They were building independence. Everywhere they went, and the galaxy began to understand something it had never truly believed. Before, you can't ban what doesn't need your approval. Asterisk. The Galactic Council had become a broken echo of what it once was. Once proud halls now echoed with silence. Many member species had left. The core alliances were weakening. Trade routes were falling apart. The Council's control was vanishing, but there had been no war, no cities destroyed, no armies clashing in space, no blood spilled on foreign soil. Earth had brought none of those things. And still, they had changed the shape of the galaxy more than any war ever had. From the icy moons of the outer rims to the green jungles of inner systems, one phrase had taken root. No permission needed. It started as a message. Then it became a belief. Then it became a movement. Captain Reyna stood once more aboard the Aegis Rift, now the flagship of Earth's hidden fleet. She looked out over the stars, not with pride, but with understanding. "We didn't break the galaxy," she said. "We just showed them they could live without asking first." Her crew had grown, not just humans. Volunteers from dozens of worlds who believed in Earth's new way. People tired of fear and bureaucracy. People who wanted to build, not obey. And Earth allowed them all but demanded nothing in return. No taxes, no pledges. Only self-respect. That was the cost of freedom. Back on Earth, the planet thrived, not as a fortress, but as a beacon. Technology had advanced faster in Exile than it ever had inside the Council's rules. Old deserts turned green. Oceans healed. Cities hovered without wires. Crime dropped. Education soared. Earth had not just survived exile, it had evolved from it. In the ruins of what used to be the Council's communication center, only a single broadcast remained active. It played in a loop, unable to be stopped. No one claimed responsibility, but everyone knew where it came from. It simply said, "The future does not wait for votes." Some council members still clung to order, still hoped to bring Earth back into the system. But their messages were never answered, their warnings ignored. Because humanity had already written its final reply the day they were banished. In deep space, a neutral convoy entered a dangerous System 1 where pirates often ambushed unguarded vessels. As expected, the convoy was attacked. But before any call for help was sent, 3 black ships appeared, silent, swift, precise. They dismantled the pirate fleet without speaking a word. And when the convoy offered payment, the black ships vanished again. All that remained was a small glowing tag left on the cargo bay. Safe because someone chose to act, not ask. In a council emergency summit likely their last only 7 species attended. There had once been 70. The others had gone. Quiet, following Earth's path, or simply focusing on their own futures. One ambassador asked, "How did they do this? Without war, without threats, how did they break us?" The answer was simple. They stopped believing they needed permission. In a forgotten corner of the galaxy, on a planet no one had mapped, children played among towers made from Earth-born tech. They had never heard of the Council. They didn't know about the vote. All they knew was that help had come when no one else listened. And it had asked for nothing in return. Captain Reyna received a final encrypted message from Earth's Central Command. It was short, only 4 words, "Mission complete. Begin new era." She turned to her crew, humans and aliens alike. "We're no longer reacting," she said. "We're building. Not for control, for choice. Wherever someone believes they need approval to survive, we show them otherwise." And with that, the Aegis Rift turned its engines toward the void, heading not toward war, but toward forgotten stars where fear still ruled. They carried no flag, no anthem, only the knowledge that change didn't require power, it required belief. In the end, Earth never raised a weapon in response to exile, because it didn't have to. The true weapon had always been the human spirit. The Council had voted to banish Earth, but Earth never needed to stay. And in leaving, they didn't retreat. They rewrote the rules of the galaxy.